When should you drop an insurance carrier? It can be a scary concept, so how do you think through it? Well, my guest today is a principal at an accounting firm focused on private practices. He helps his clients think through this question, among others, and he'll share his thinking with us. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency and also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want, but care is better when it's the provider of care who owns the practice as opposed to anybody else, because no matter what decisions got to get made, business, clinical, whatever it might be, is made by the same people who have to turn right around and take care of a patient. So we can feel pretty confident that the needs of the patient are always top of mind. My guest today is Joe Lessard. Joe is a partner at Professional Business Management, a healthcare practice management and accounting firm in the Northwest Chicago suburbs. Joe has been with PBM since 2009 and a principal since 2020. He's attained designations as a certified public accountant, health practice advisor, and as a certified healthcare business consultant. He believes in rolling up his sleeves and is usually on-site visiting his clients' operations firsthand. Joe is responsible for all accounting and payroll services, as well as personal and business tax returns for his clients. He helps them review operations and day-to-day aspects such as HR, employee benefits, retirement plans, collections, billing, and patient interactions. Every client has different needs, and that's why Joe's commitment to his clients' needs and his customer service is what he prides himself on. A often guest here on Practice Care. Thanks for making another appearance.
Happy to be here.
It is good to have you back in May. We're recording this in May, so tax time is behind you. I was about to say comfortably behind you, but I don't want to, just sort of presume.
Maybe for now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a short window.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about when to drop an insurance carrier. My gut is for every 10 who actually do it, thousands want to, but they're not quite sure how to think it through because nobody likes it. And so hopefully we'll get some good insights here. But before we get to that, for those who don't know you or haven't, listened to other episodes, tell us a bit more about you and PBM.
Yeah, I am a principal owner of one of four at Professional Business Management. We are a healthcare consulting firm. The accounting people usually come to us because they need help with accounting and taxes, but we are a consulting firm, first and foremost, and we've been doing this since not me, obviously, but our firm's been around since 1932. So we're four generations of ownership. And we certainly know the playing field for all the physicians, dentists, veterinarians, right, in the Chicagoland area. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And not many can say since 1932, continuously doing the same thing in the same place, more or less. So a lot of institutional knowledge there. So when to drop an insurance carrier, that's the topic. I'm curious, what trends are you seeing amongst your client base at PBM on this issue?
Well, I've had two conversations with clients this week alone
Okay.
about, should I drop an insurance? When's the right time for that? So the timing of this recording is, I would say it's a great timing, but this is the conversation I have regularly every month with all my clients, because the trend is the insurance contracts, they're not really raising their fees that much. They're constantly cutting reimbursements. And that's for our healthcare, our medical practices, especially, even our dental clients. Veterinarians don't have to deal with insurance as much, but certainly with medical and dental, absolutely, it's a constant topic.
Yeah. And you could go for it. You can try to negotiate your rates and get them on. You can do that. And there's plenty of success stories, but it's not guaranteed.
Right.
And you've got to have a lot of things in place. And the day-to-day is, yeah, it's not going up if you just let it go. So what would you say, what is that tipping point? So I mean, I've been in business now for 9 years, and I never would have disagreed with the following statement, but until you live it, you don't really appreciate it, which is people will, in business and in life, live with a lot of pain. And I don't think anybody knows the amount of pain they'll live with until they start living with it. And this has got to be one of those areas. But then it gets to a tipping point, and everybody says, enough. I can't do this anymore. So talk about that. Like, what does that look like? It's probably not a precise point, but put some description to it.
As any other accountant out there will say, it depends is the answer.
Yeah.
And every every doctor's situation is different. And, usually people get in network when they start their practice,
Mm-hmm.
and they do it because that's how they get patients.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in the way I like to describe it, or clarify it or justify it is probably more the appropriate term. Is that's your form of marketing,
It's a big
right?
one. Yeah.
It's, you may not have all the big dollars being spent on all the promotions and door-to-door sales, or you're no doubt you're spending money on SEO and online marketing and what have you, but this is a form of marketing, right? Patients can look you up on a website and find that you are a preferred provider,
Or they'll
right?
call you and
That's
ask you. Yeah. And it's a friction point. Yes.
especially as you're new, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the reputation that generates that following usually. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to get in network with a lot of insurance contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, it does bring in patients, and that's what you want
Mm-hmm.
as a private practice owner. But at some point, you are kind of left making decisions
Mm-hmm.
of, and it's not necessarily. Sometimes it's, hey, when do I drop insurance? When do I cut back certain insurance? And oftentimes it's because, hey, I am so busy. Do I hire an associate? Do I hire another mid-level provider?
Mm-hmm.
And usually that is in that discussion is in tandem with, hey, do I cut insurance? Because depending on your situation, if you cut you either keep the status quo
Mm-hmm.
and you add another provider because new patients can't come. There's a backlog there. Well, adding another provider allows that to happen, allows those
Mm-hmm.
new patients to be seen. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I don't want the added cost headache of another provider. I can actually be, depending on the situation and the insurance contract and my patient demographics, I might be better off just cutting these two insurance contracts and be out of network.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, I may lose some patients. You
Mm-hmm.
will,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for those that stick around, you are now reaping a higher reimbursement rate in the process. So you may
Mm-hmm.
have lost 40% of those patients, but those 60% that remain are paying a higher reimbursement rate, or they're not, you're not getting a haircut,
Mm-hmm.
and you're ahead. So your work life balance, your patient balance has fixed itself in
Mm-hmm.
the process, and
Mm-hmm.
you're making more money in the process.
Mm-hmm. So do you
That's
do you do you find
that's usually the discussion.
yeah, so there's a financial consideration and a sort of quality of life. What do you see? Is there do they're I imagine they're considered together. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
you know, and where do when you've seen clients sort of, you know, drop a carrier, how does that story typically go? Like I'm burnt out, or we're 2 years away from being in the red, so why wait? Or just, what I'm just curious on some examples.
Yeah. So careful consideration obviously it needs to be done here.
Hmm.
And it's different for my physician practices versus my dental practices,
Hmm.
and even those specialists versus the generalists.
Hmm.
These discussions are completely different. They overall have the same theme, but
Hmm.
how we navigate it, what's even in play
Hmm.
realistically
Hmm.
is so different.
Hmm.
My physician clients, there's only so much you can do with
Hmm.
trying to drop a network. You can move more towards that concierge type model, but you
Fair.
have to have the right practice to do that. You
Hmm.
can't just be an oncologist and drop insurance contracts. Good luck. You can't do that,
Hmm.
right? But if you provide a higher level family medicine concierge, where you specialize in providing a lot of extra care for your client, for your patients,
Hmm.
and you're not just treating them in and out in 15 minutes, but you give them the hour. You're always available, right? Your practice is designed more for that concierge type of feel to it, and
Okay.
so you can then get rid of dealing with insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and you charge your patients a higher kind of a subscription type of fee, and that's how you do it. But
Mm-hmm.
those are hard to come by. Those are hard to do. My dental practices are usually the ones I'm having the most conversations with about when's the right time, because
Mm-hmm.
every dental practice usually wants to be fee for service.
Mm-hmm.
And fee for service is, if I bill 100, I'm going to collect 100, versus billing 100 and collect 50,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so it's usually my dentists that are the ones that are, at some point we are having this discussion. It's usually not in years 0 to 5, right? But it's after that, the opportunity's there,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you're doing and what your new patient flow is, depending on how far you're booked out, depending on who you are in network with, and what your competition's like. We try to look at, who are the big employers in the area. If a big school system has MetLife, you might want to consider, being in network with MetLife,
Mm-hmm.
just so you can continue that same, you try to grab all of those employees to your practice.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, every situation is so dependent on and on their direct circumstance.
Right. So then, all right. So on the medical side, what you're saying is, um, if you're going to do it, you need to up the service because you're just sort of at a disadvantage because everybody, I guess the presumption there is that your competition is going to continue to be a network, but you will not. So you have to change something else in terms of the competitive level. But on the dental side, um, well, it's still competition based to a degree. If there's if enough of your area, if enough of your competitors are doing the same thing or a similar thing, then
Yeah, you have to justify
mhm,
you're out of network, right? If everyone else is in network, well, why are you deserving of a higher fee?
right.
Right. And the easier way to help explain this too, for dental versus medical, usually the maximum out of pocket for any insurance payer is going to pay for a patient's benefits are pretty minimal.
Yeah, dental and they don't really
So
compare dental and medical,
no, the
which is
maximum.
interesting. I mean, some medical, I mean, well, the open market, the private's just ridiculous in terms of the out of pocket. It's funny. It's like medical covers more, but depending on what you have, the deductible and out of pocket, it might not be terribly different from dental. I guess it depends what you're comparing.
It very much depends, but again, dental, the amounts are so small,
They are.
and so it's pretty easy. And again, if you've got I wouldn't say a lot of work that needs to get done, but
Hmm.
you know, if you have a procedure or two a year on top of your regular cleanings, you're probably going to hit your maximum out of pocket.
Hmm.
And so you're not getting much more of a benefit by
Hmm.
having an insurance. You're really not.
Hmm.
And the key consideration I tell my clients when they're thinking about this, or when I approach them on this, is, again, look at your patients. How much percentage of your patients have this insurance contract versus this and this and this and this?
Hmm.
And then you look at the insurance contracts and the reimbursement rates for these, and you're
Hmm.
kind of making some assumptions as to, okay, if I drop the lowest three and it represents 15% of my practice's revenue, and it's the X number of patients, and X number of patients leave if I decide to drop it.
Hmm.
But it's chances are it's not going to be all of those. Chances are,
So what's the
if you're
break
going to
even?
retain some of those,
Yeah,
then chances are you're probably going to retain more than you think. And
right.
so we try to be conservative in our financial models that way, and kind of
Hmm.
assume not necessarily a worst case scenario, but we're pessimistic in the fact that we think less people are going to stick around than I think really are.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it allows us to kind of plan for worst case scenario,
Hmm.
knowing that we believe it's really going to be better than that.
Right.
And it's just timing, right? And timing, proper notification to your patients,
Hmm.
And that notification is not just a letter, it's not just a social media thing, a mailing. It's taking time to explain it to your patients,
Hmm.
giving them advance notice.
Hmm.
So any patients that do want to come see you before you drop
Hmm.
can,
Hmm.
right? And that's a good opportunity for you then to explain to them, hey, this is what this would be for you without insurance, without me
Hmm.
being out of network.
Hmm.
And you help demonstrate the financial impact because in the end, that's all the patient cares about.
Hmm.
Patient Patients are generally there because they like the service you do.
Hmm.
They wouldn't keep coming back to you if that was different.
Right.
Um, Unless you provide some sort of service that is phenomenal and no one else can do, right?
Right. Right.
They don't mind that your bedside manner is bad. But
Hmm.
again, if you're a great doctor, you provide good service,
Hmm.
patients will come back, but they want to make sure that the financial impact isn't going to be three times more, and that
Hmm.
they just don't understand. And being in network and dealing with insurance, they don't make it easy to fully understand of what's the insurance gonna pay and what am I gonna left pay.
Hmm.
And so that's left for my providers to help trying to bridge that gap to help educate their patients on
Right.
and financially kind of map it out for them and saying, hey, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So to go back to like the math, so I'll just use patient volume. It's 15% of the patient volume. We've done the math, and if half of that stays, we sort of break even. I like to think of things in break even.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because to me, that's like a good decision point. Yeah, so we could keep half of them, or we think we would. I mean, time will tell, but that sounds reasonable. And then, yeah, the next question is, which you started to answer, the high level before and after. This is change management. So the case to change, there's got to be a rationale, like a reason that, you know, is good for the patient. It's okay if it's good for you, but if you're doing it, if it comes across, if you're only doing it for you, um, it's going to come across as selfish, and you don't want that, even if it's true. Don't be inauthentic, but this is going to be better for you because patient, better for us because, and we have to, reluctantly, we didn't want to do this, but we, et cetera, et cetera. But you've got to bring them along to a degree. This is how it's going to impact you. Like you said, before you were paying this, after you're going to be paying that, just so you know what you're getting into if you want to stay. Yeah.
Well, I think the insurance contracts have forced these healthcare practices to be more business minded
Hmm.
versus patient focused.
Hmm.
And, I go back to a time probably before I was alive, but doctors were there to serve patients and took the time and made house calls and what have you. And they were there
Had the
because they
time. Yeah.
truly cared about the patients. They took their time.
Hmm.
Now, with reimbursements the way they are and continual cuts to them, their doctors and all the other mid-level providers are forced to speed through those appointments and make things more as efficient as possible.
Hmm.
So instead of spending an hour on a cleaning, maybe they're only spending 45 minutes on a cleaning.
Hmm.
Or maybe instead of spending a half hour with the doctor, maybe you're only spending 15 minutes.
Hmm.
It's forced to accelerate your time with a provider because in order for them to be profitable to make things the way that they need to work
Hmm.
operationally, they need to see more patients.
Hmm.
And so that's just the reality of it of dealing with insurance.
Yeah. And, go back to what you said earlier about on the medical side, at least in primary care, you're looking at a concierge model or a direct primary care. And the rationale to a T is always the same. I cannot practice medicine in a way that's good for you if I continue to take this insurance. I just
Yeah.
cannot. And that's not why I got into it. And I can't do it, um, I just, I don't feel I can provide good care. Therefore, I'm making this change. You could say that about any dental insurance, any other insurance. They just, unfortunately, the economics say that I cannot give you the time I feel is necessary if I continue to take this insurance plan. And so, you know,
And
reluctantly, I have to make this change, or else I'm going to have to start cutting you short. And I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not right.
and my medical practices are the most impacted because their choice to truly cut who they're in network with is so beyond their ability to even go down that path.
Hmm.
And so when their insurance reimbursement rates are going down, but yet the cost of living everywhere else and all of your expenses keep going up, their margins are being squeezed on both ends.
Yeah, those lines
And
cross
so
eventually in a bad way.
there's only so much you can do. And
Hmm.
so, with my dental practices, at least there's some flexibility with getting out of network much easier than
Yeah,
medical practices,
yeah.
but they're still being squeezed on the overhead expenses of running a practices. Wages and have gone up, supplies, lab, everything has
Hmm.
gone up,
Hmm.
and so you have to be able to. There's only so much control you can have over your expenses. So what's the other end of the equation? It's your income, and
Yeah,
dealing with when to cut insurance is part of that discussion.
yeah, yeah. So we talked a bit about before the getting rid of the communication plan. What else would you say is essential if you're going to drop a carrier? What are like the essential parts of the before you do it day to like plan and get ready and make sure it's implemented smoothly?
Sir, again, you analyze your data, you make some assumptions as you do the math of making some
Hmm.
assumptions of what number of patients are going to stay, what your reimbursements will be, et cetera. You do the financial model of that.
Hmm.
Once you've decided which insurance contracts you want to drop, you have to obviously contact the insurance carrier and coordinate that, because sometimes you're locked in to a certain period of time and you
Mm.
can't drop it. Yeah, I had a conversation yesterday. She had a 2-year kind of contract, and she wants to do it soon, but she has to hold on for another year.
Mm. Okay.
So you have to understand what your contract says. I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one. So if you need talk to your insurance contract,
Yeah.
your insurance carrier first about the timing of it. Once you've decided, then you map out some sort of communication to your patients.
Hmm.
Be available to help explain to them
Hmm.
what their benefits would be with and without insurance. That's going to be okay, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
But you gotta coach your staff um, very well in this area, because it is so crucial. And I've heard many patients call the front desk or go in for a consultation and go to check out, and just the slight verbiage choices that the receptionists are making, it's potentially pushing people away from scheduling a procedure. It's our
So like they're not bought into
don't
it.
don't say that we don't take your insurance. That's not true. We take all insurance, right? It's just a matter of we are not a preferred provider, or we are, because people think not in network. I can't see you, and this is just a psychological thing, but it's
Yeah.
not true. It's just choosing to say, hey, we are not a preferred provider, but we absolutely take you, and we'll happily run your estimates, so there's no surprises for you,
Hmm.
right? It's just education, educating your staff how to speak to patients, and educating the patients on what that means for them.
Yep.
That's so important.
Yep. Do you see any different, like, is it common to say, but we'll submit the claim on your behalf and you'll get reimbursed directly. We'll do that legwork for you. It's just that we are, not in network with them or do you
I see it sometimes. Usually, if you've made the decision to be truly out of insurance, um, it's tough. I do see it sometimes.
okay. Is that like
And
not a bad transition step maybe between, I'm in network, we're no longer a preferred provider, but we'll submit for you and
oh
then,
well, no, I
yeah.
mean, usually if you're out of network, you'll still submit insurance for patients,
Okay.
right? Because you want to get paid, right? And you know that you're going to get paid something. But I've had some clients who just don't want to deal with the headache of anything insurance
Hmm.
at all, and
Hmm.
so they'll bill their patient the $500, and it's up to the patient to then submit that to their insurance. That's a bad model,
So I
because
just had, yeah, no, I just had to see an endodontist and I paid them. And they said, we will submit. And they didn't say it this way, but whatever you get's going to get mailed straight to you. and whatever timetable they take to process your claim. But we'll do
Yeah.
all that paperwork for you. I was like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a different story just because leaving it to the patient is a non-starter. Patients will not, because it's
We don't know how to do it. We don't want to learn.
you, doctor, right? You do this more often than I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to then leave it to me to have to do this is just gonna rub people the wrong way.
Do you see any advantage in offer? If that would sound like that would be, I don't know, better to do that for the patient than not doing it for the patient. I mean, if
Oh
you're
yeah,
looking at like,
absolutely.
trying to stay competitive, trying to sort of have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
Yeah, it's just the reason why there's decisions about who ultimately submits it, who ultimately gets reimbursed by the
Mm-hmm.
insurance payer. It's about um, trying to make sure that the provider is paid,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he there's $1,000 bill, the dentist or something bills out $1,000, and hey, I expect my $1,000 to be paid up front. You got to pay me, and whatever the
Mm-hmm.
insurance is going to pay you, reimburse you for, they do. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it because I want to get paid,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm doing this as a courtesy for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is an option, but it's an option only because they're collecting that full $1,000 at time of service
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to have to deal with
Right. They don't
waiting
want
on
to wait.
insurance or
Yeah.
fighting or anything like that. That's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the other option is, hey, we estimate your out of pocket to be 700, and the insurance is going to pay 300. You pay the 700 now, and we'll wait for the insurance to pay us the 300.
Mm-hmm.
That's another option.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it just depends on each practice's ability to cope and manage
Mm-hmm.
and navigate the complexities of where they're getting their money from.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's number one, right? You did the service, you should get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you have insurance, it complicates it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a patient that walks out the front door without paying their balance, and now you have to chase them
Yeah.
for their fee. That also complicates it.
Yeah.
So either way, any which way, you just have to make sure that you are navigating it delicately.
Mm-hmm. I would think they'd want, get paid today, and then we will submit the paperwork and your insurance will reimburse you directly to you and whatever the terms of your plan go by.
It also depends on the specialty too, right? Like a endodontist or an oral surgeon, right? They tend to be more uh, of like that model,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the fees are so much higher.
Mm-hmm. And, and
Uh,
and competitively, I'll bet you most.
right,
You're not really at a disadvantage.
right. And look, the general dentist, good luck. If you do
Yeah.
that, you're not. There's a bunch of other dentists that won't do that. Will do the
Mm-hmm.
exact opposite of that, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to make yourself different by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've covered a lot, as we always do. Anything big you think we missed?
No, it's just careful planning. That's
Yeah.
it. In the end, the goal is to get paid for the work you do and make it as manageable and stress free as
Mm-hmm.
possible, and be able to provide patients with the care that they need. And so all these factors are things to think about
Mm-hmm.
before making the decision to get out of network.
Yeah. Where would you recommend somebody get started? The context is we've caught a listener's attention. Joe's right. We talk about this all the time, but we never really go anywhere. What's something they could do to get off the starting line? Is try to make that get to a tangible decision point. We should do this or we should just do the math, like pick a carrier that's the most painful and start there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly contact us and we can help you run those numbers. That's what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and try to figure out what your reimbursement is, number of patients of each, a number of procedures, and try to financially plan this out for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thought. One item that you'd want to look at and get us involved. But if you're just feeling like there's a backlog of patients and you just can't see them, and you're like, it's great, right? I'm not worried about seeing patients,
Hmm.
but or where I'm finding my next patient, but you should be,
Yeah.
because you're missing out on patients. If patients are taking too long to get in your chair, you will eventually
Hmm.
stop getting new patients.
Hmm.
And so you might as well cut the spigot off, or shut the spigot off on who you're in network with, so those new patients can be seen by you.
Right.
And in the end, you satisfy that's still in a good model for you, but you're getting paid more.
Yeah, I guess you could have like a 5 week wait list with insurance rates, or a 2 week wait list, or 1 week wait list with higher rates. Yeah. I wonder, do you find, like, do most of your clients already have their insurance contracts and fee schedules? Like, they could go to a file and say, all right, here's what we're getting paid by carrier for each of the major procedures that we do. Because you talk to some
Uh,
folks who
yeah,
consult and like, so we need to see your contracts. I don't know what you mean. I don't have them.
yeah.
Really? You
No,
don't, yeah.
it usually requires some digging.
Hmm.
It should be easier than it is, but it usually requires some digging.
Yeah. So maybe start there too, is go make sure for every insurance carrier that you are in network with, you get the contract and the fee schedule. And I've come to learn those are separate documents. They're rarely delivered at all, let alone together. You've got to just track down both of them, because they're worded to confuse. And
And just another, when's the right time besides all the stuff I mentioned?
Mhm.
Again, usually if you're newer in practice,
Mm,
you're not really having this discussion. You're not really thinking about this.
yeah.
But if you're halfway through your career, um, now is the time, right?
Hmm.
If you're at the tail end of your career, when
Yeah.
you're thinking about selling your practice within a few years, don't do it.
Hmm.
Because if you do that and all of a sudden you lose a bunch of patients,
Yeah.
then your practice isn't worth as much anymore, because now
Hmm.
you're not generating as much revenue, and
Hmm.
you won't have as much to sell anymore.
Hmm.
So usually, if you're at least 10 years before you retire,
Hmm.
yeah, that's fine. Or midway through your career, at least a third of the way career. So a third of the way your career, between 10 years before you decide that you want to retire,
Right.
that's kind of the time.
Right. So that's the sweet spot. And then when you're digging up your contracts and fee schedules, note the expiration date of every one of them. Because just your story earlier, she wants to get out today. She's got to wait another year because, that's the expiration date. So
Yep.
planning requires a date. Thank you,
Yep.
Joe. Thanks for coming back on again. Always good stuff. Always informative. I appreciate it.
Always appreciate you having me on.
So we've got your contact information there in the show notes for this episode. So any listeners who want to get a hold of you, you now have another way to do it. 2 quick points before wrapping up. First, subscribe to Practice Care. Why haven't you subscribed to Practice Care yet? You should. Practice Care is one word, easy to find. We drop a new episode every week, and that's just the easiest way to stay up to date. And also, if you're like Joe or us and you serve private practice owners, or you're one yourself, either way, you've got some experience on the business side of private practice. Anything is good game. Something you might think is obvious and boring. Who would care? I promise you others are struggling with it. Don't overthink it. In the show notes to every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks. Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much, and until next time.